everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning for our summer series of the Montana PBS Media Lab. We're really excited that you're here this morning. My name is Nikki Vredenberg, and I think I know most of you from some of our other series, but I think we've got some new faces in the room. I'm excited to have you join us for this series of workshops. As if you've been here before, you know our drill. We have a different topic every week, but the presenter and the presenter is different, the topic is different, but the format is the same. So I have one EdTech rock star from across the state who comes in and trains you to use one digital tool. And the idea is you see lots of examples, you get lots of great ideas, and then we give you time to practice playing with it and learning how it works, and hopefully creating something that you can use in the fall with your students. And so today we've got Sarah Rainey who's going to be presenting. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Sarah Rainey.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I am the 4th through 8th grade tech integration specialist for Billings Public Schools. I taught in the middle school classroom for 16 years. I taught a variety of things: Spanish, special education, English, and digital literacy. And I am coming to you from Little Bitterroot Lake in Northwest Montana today.
This is fun about this too, is we are all in different places across the state. So
here we go. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So Google Sites is one of my favorite tools, and I started using it with all grade levels. When I say all, I mean the 4 through 8 grades that I currently work with. But oftentimes people think that younger grades or younger kids can't do things, and I love to prove people wrong, and kids do too. So I've really been focusing on website creation with 4th graders, and we've used it in a variety of ways. So I want to take you through the many ways that you can use this. When I first encountered Google Sites, I thought, well, yeah, I can make a site for my classroom. That would be okay. But then what would I add? And I kind of overthought it. And then I never had considered using it as a student portfolio or for a project. And now in my job as a way to push out information and training. So I'm going to show you examples of all of these things today. If you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and Nikki will interrupt me, or you can just interrupt me as well. What's kind of weird with this is, in our districts, we do everything we can to protect students and their privacy, and we're all about security. So some of my links, if you want to look at them later on, some are going to be available for you to see, others aren't. And that's just because they were created by students and I'm not the owner of them. But if you would like examples, we can go ahead and I can push those out to you at a later time. So let's go ahead and take a look at some examples. So these two teachers are amazing, and they wanted to create a hub. They are middle school teachers. One is a 6th grade math teacher. One is a 7th grade science teacher. Again, in showing you this, it's not to make you feel guilty, like, oh man, I should have a site like that. This is what works for these teachers. So again, with all of this technology, I always say, do what works best for you. So here's Mrs. Schaff, 7th grade science teacher. And this is her website. She wanted a landing place for parents and students to know where to get information. So she has obviously her homepage, her contact information. This has come in super handy just for me, so I can go ahead and give her a call in her classroom. She has her class syllabus, parent resources, and then she has links to the district information, what's going on with the district in terms of COVID and those types of things, their classroom calendar, student absence resources, and so on. So she has a pretty comprehensive site for everybody to go to for more information. I like doing that too. If students ever had questions, or what did we do yesterday? I wasn't here. This would be the place that she would have students check, or Google Classroom. But what I like too is she has other things that she's working on in her class. She has her science stuff, but she also is addressing the zones of regulation, which is what we're working on in our district as well. And these are some things that she uses with her classes, because again, she may just teach science, but we also teach everything, that is teachers. And so this is something that she feels is really important to talk about with all of her students there. Okay, so that's her site. And then this is Mrs. Daly's. She is a 6th grade teacher, math teacher. All right, and so here's hers. Again, they all really got into their creating a banner with their, their Bitmojis and such on there. But again, for this, she has an FAQ. Let's see what that has on there. Oh, I love this because as a parent, I have, my son who was struggling in geometry, and I'm like, look, you didn't do well on this assignment. Can you redo it? I don't know. And as a parent, that's so frustrating, right? And so this is actually really nice that she has all of these things on here, kind of a drop-down menu. So I failed a test or an assignment. Can I redo them? Okay, here's what she says. I love this. Please do not panic. We will work through these standards until you're proficient. So this is a wonderful thing to have if you decide to do a teacher page. That's fabulous. I love that there. Obviously as ST math, school-wide expectations, and so on. And again, there's always the link to the bigger classroom or the bigger school page. So those are some examples of teachers. Does anybody have any questions about that? Nope. All right. Let's go on to the next part. Now, this is the part that I was most excited about, our student projects. I love it when students are all working together on something that they can be really proud of. So the first site I'm going to show you is one that we did as a collaborative site 2 years ago. This had there's some pros and cons to all of these, but I want to show you this one. So in 4th grade, students have to learn the states and state capitals, and then they're each assigned a state, and that's where they do their informational writing. So this is Mrs. Bacon's class, and we have our little Pixton class photo here. And if you notice at the top, there is a page for each one of the students here. So the way that we did this site is all the students worked together on one site. Each student had their own page, and each page was a different state. So I'm going to take my buddy Kearney here. All right, and he had Colorado. He has his little avatar there. What was really nice about this is that we gave students the freedom to add what they wanted, and then we had to rein some of them in because some got out of hand with pictures. And we talked about how words and pictures are both important on websites. But if you notice on here, Kearney here's his informational writing. What is so wonderful about Google Sites is that you can take any of those Google tools that we use with kids and put them in here. And now if Kearney wanted to make changes on this, he just needs to do that from his Drive or Google Classroom, and it will update automatically here. But what we love, we talked a lot about how, where your eye goes when you're reading, those types of things. And he has all of this information here corresponds with these images that are here in his writing. They learned how to make image carousels. So here's the image carousel here. With that, he changed the color on sections. I always show Kearney's because it's like the cream of the crop, because Kearney really has an eye for design and chickmunks. I think that's so cute that he wrote it that way. And then at the very bottom, what we did is we used a green screen and we had them talk about their state. So let's listen to Kearney, if it loads.
Welcome to Colorado. You should go to Mesa Verde. It is a really cool place, but also remember that there's food. Like they have lots of burgers there, and they also have lots of prairie dogs. But if you go there, remember the pack sunscreen.
I love it so much. So that was Kearney's. Now, here's some pitfalls of this. When we had every student working on one Google site, that created some issues because it kind of overloaded the site. So imagine when you say you were to have 20 students working on Google Slides, that can create some issues. And that kind of happened a bit here. And so the next year I altered it. So this year I did something a little different. Do we have any questions or comments? No? Okay. So this is how I altered it this year. What I did is I went ahead and I taught each student how to create their own site. And then I made a website and I put a button at the bottom that links to each one of their sites. That way we didn't run into any technical issues. So here's our class photo. And now we just said it was a class trip around the United States. So let's check out Wyoming here. All right, so Martin did Wyoming. Let's wait for it to load here. Oh, okay, this was something we talked about with the kids that we needed to do. They needed to go in and give permission to view these things. So he clearly has forgotten to do that, but that's okay. So this is his informational writing here. We taught them all about maps. We liked that they could choose a map that would zoom in and out so they could see where their state was in relation to them, of their flowers and such. So what this did is it allowed students to create just one website, but just one page with it. And that ended up alleviating kind of the craziness of everybody being on the same site together. As much as I loved that everybody had a page on that site, I could have done that here, but I did want to make it a little bit easier to go ahead and link it up this way. One thing that we noticed that I thought was really, really interesting is with this site, come on and load. All right, with our first one, it was really nice that parents, so what we did is we kicked this out to parents in Seesaw and said, hey, check out what your students have been working on. And there was a student in the class who she struggles tremendously with writing, and I don't know that her parents understood to what level. And so when they went in and they looked at all the other students writing and were just really enjoying it, they ended up contacting the teacher and saying, you know, I'm really concerned because she clearly isn't writing to the same standard as everybody else. And so what that did is it provided me an opportunity to come in and do a whole lesson on some of the tech tools that you can use to help your writing. And it did help tremendously. All right. I think Mason wrote a ton. Oh, his wasn't shared either. Okay, so then they got into, they figured out quick that you can put YouTube videos on here. And it was a great way for them to find fun things and food and things like that. This became quite a project because if you have a student that isn't strong in researching, which most kids aren't, you have to walk them through that process as well. And so let's say you have Montana and you're talking about Glacier National Park and you search for glaciers. Well, you could find glaciers in Alaska and there's sea life around them that's different than what you know, we have here in Montana. And so we had to do a lot of checking on those things. We did lots of kind of gallery walks, like walk around and look at each other's sites and let's give some constructive feedback, or we'd project them up and show that to this class as well. So those were those examples. And then we had another fourth grade. This is Mrs. Trout's class. We had Mrs. Bacon and Mrs. Trout. And what was interesting about this class is they're extremely low. This was a struggling school and class, and they could barely write when I first met them. But the teacher just plugged along and she believed strongly in writing, and she would have them write about their state. She'd have them write 2 sentences each day on it. And they came away with some great stuff. So let's look at Florida's here. My buddy Felicia. All right. She has her videos here, and then she has her little green screen video here. Hers was very kind of cut and dried, like it was pretty simple, but for somebody who could barely write, this is pretty incredible here for her. One thing I want to show you that I thought was hilarious, because kids really do pay attention. We talk a lot about what it's like when you go to a website and you see websites that are really hard to read, and how do you respond to that, and how can you make it better? Oh yeah, this is his. Okay, so we're gonna look at the bottom here. This is so funny. He has, at the bottom, he has this feedback button, and I didn't teach him this. He came up with it himself. So it's feedback, and it links to a Google form that he created, and he just wants your feedback on if we like the site, if there's anything that should be changed, and so on. So these are fourth graders. I thought that was pretty darn clever that they would go and do that as well. But kids are incredible. I was telling Nikki before, I had Billings, the school board race is a little contentious, and my neighbor was running for school board, and he was complaining to me about how he had to create a website and all this stuff. And I said, you know what, Chad? My fourth grade students make websites. I think you are just fine. Don't complain to me about it. All right, so now I'm going to show you some student portfolios. So in fifth grade, what I've done, we have Seesaw in our district, but it tends to be that it's used K3, and then it kind of falls off. And so we had students create portfolios that then they could show with their parents for parent-teacher conferences and those kind of things. So I'm gonna show you here. So this is my buddy Romy. And if you notice, she kind of switched. I taught him a little bit more in depth. They can switch the sidebar and all that. But if you notice over here, we have the About Me. That's the very first thing I do with kids so that they can make it their own. Math, writing, reading, self-evaluation, I thought was great. Zones of regulation. And then they did a fun alien science project. So let's go to her About Me. And again, I don't limit her or limit them on anything. I just say, go for it. I want this to be about you. I don't know that she added much to math. She had a 5-minute drill added there. But let's look at the self-evaluation, because this is what's so nice about this, is that then they can add anything from their drive. So here's her self-evaluation. And this is what she evaluated herself before parent-teacher conferences on where she's at. She has her some of her scores and goals. All right. And then we again did the zones of regulation, and we did that with Pixton. And so she went ahead and added that here. So this is another thing where she can sit down with her parents and she can show them what she's been doing in class. The alien science project was very fun. They had to pick an alien. They had to choose a planet, and then they had to pick an alien and have all of the features that the alien would have based on their planet. And then they have their green screen with it. So again, this just becomes a portfolio for her. You can have journaling on here. You can have, so it can be almost like a blog style website. We have Sloan's as well. And if you know Sloan, this is Sloan. I really wanted it to be about them. I taught them about Canva, and so Sloan was over the top with that. Started making all kinds of stuff. So there is that. And I have 3 more things to show you. Any questions, anybody? It's a quiet group, Nikki.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I bet that'll come up during work time once we
probably. All right.
get into the nuts and bolts.
Here's what I love. And so we have 6 middle schools in Billings, and I know several of them have these staff hubs. So I'm going to show you 2 of them. because I know if I were a new teacher coming into a school, this would be amazing, an amazing resource. And just as a teacher in general, how many times did I get to the end of the year and I would say, oh my gosh, I feel like this is the first time I'm doing this and I've done it 16 times. So here are the staff hubs. So we'll start with Ben Steele's. And this is a website that one of the teachers or the admin created that has all of these resources for teachers. So this is Mr. Ben Steele. That's his face back there. So we have the Academic Assistance Center. So you click on that and it's going to tell you, oh, this is who this person is and what can you do. So this is their tiered intervention system. So it talks about what she does and what's, available. Advisory, what do you do during advisory time? Attendance plan. If it loads. Nope. Bell schedule, I think, is huge. I mean, how many times, especially because on Wednesdays it's different for us. That's always nice. There's some student procedures PLC headquarters, which is nice. Like, hey, is there a form I need to fill out? What does that look like? It's all there. Social committee, master calendar, and then if you have any concerns, this is kind of like the referral form. So I don't know about you, but this would have been super helpful for me, especially if I was a new teacher coming in there. And then Castle Rock also has one. Theirs is a little different, but again, it's just a lot of resources. They have their quick links, which is very nice. And then you have your principal's corner, social emotional learning. You have all of your content areas, and then they're a visible learning school. So you have that advisory, all of these things that you're probably going to need to know as well. So if anybody, I don't know, I think that this is super helpful for all teachers. And then my final thing for anybody who does trainings or anything, I am actually teaching a class with Shondell coming up. Let's go to the view of it. And so what we end up doing is we're doing this Google Infusion class. And if you notice, we have day 1 over here. But as we kick out information, I have all these days hidden so that I can reveal them. So after day 1, I'm going to unhide day 2, and then the information will show up on there as well. So that was kind of a fire hose, but those are all the ways that you can use Google Sites. So don't be like me and get stuck on, oh, there's a teacher site. What would I do with it? How would I use it? I just like it because, I mean, it's so versatile. And especially if even looking at the staff hub, if that's something you want to take on for your school, so everybody had just a resource for it. I mean, even something as simple as that, I think, can be very useful. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute. Thoughts, questions? Nobody? All right. Let me. All right. Yeah. Hey.
Hi. Is it PBS Learning Media that has the little tutorial for walking you step by step with the little videos? I think we learned about it in Tilt. And it has the little videos and you can just like follow each 3-minute video and go step by step for creating your very first website if you've never done it before.
Well, funny you should say that. I have a tutorial for you too.
Oh, good.
But we're going to kind of play around now. So I want you to just come up with an idea. Think about how you want to use this. I'm going to be honest with you. If you're going to use this with your students, they're going to take off with it. Like they go crazy, which is great. And I have a million example sites, because you build it kind of as you go and show the kids. So we're going to kind of do that today. Just kind of jump in and I'm going to show you how to do it. You don't have to use it. You can trash that one if you want. But I think it would be good just to kind of walk through it. All right. All right, share my screen again. All right, so several ways to get to Google Sites. You can, I can't show it on here. You can go to your little waffle. That's what I call it. Those of us in middle school call it the waffle because they're always hungry. Right here, and just go to sites, or you can just go to sites.google.com. And I know this is hard to watch and then do it yourself. So if you want to watch a little bit and then, you know, we're going to give you time to kind of build your own and see what you want to do. And so they already have some of these templates up here. A student portfolio, all of that. I don't ever use those because I really like kids to just make their own. I like them to see all the components of it. So we're just going to go to blank and start fresh. If it loads, I never know with the Wi-Fi here. All right. All right. So this can be a little overwhelming at first because it's like, well, where do I need to go? What do I need to do? So the very first thing I do with students is I have them title it. Or else you're going to end up like my drive looks sometimes with untitled docs and untitled everything. And you're like, what the heck? So I'm just going to call this my practice site, but you guys call it whatever you want. Sometimes we call it a sandbox because we're just playing. So let's go ahead and look at these tools at the top real quick. This is your undo button or redo. This is how you're going to share or collaborate with other people. So that first site that I showed you when I had all the students working on one site together, I went ahead and I added each of them this way as a collaborator. But if you have like a department that you're working with and or a couple people you're working on something with, you can just add those people there and you can edit it together. It's going to look like any other Google tool. For example, here was that site I was just showing you, and you can see Shondell is on the site right now because her little picture's there. So, all right. When you go into your settings, this is where, if you notice, some sites had the navigation toolbar at the top, some had it on the side. This is just where you can change that, top and side. Brand images, this is if you have a logo or something, and here's something super fun that some of these kids did because they're so smart, they figure everything out. This thing is called, this is a favicon, and the favicon is this little picture that shows up in your kind of like your tab right there. You can change that. So I had some kids change their favicon to like their Pixton avatar or something like that. So you can actually, you could create your own logo, or you could create your own favicon. You could use like your little Bitmoji picture. That would be super cute. Viewer tools, you don't have to worry about that stuff too much for anything that we're doing. Same with analytics. Announcement banner is not a bad thing, because let's say you had students regularly coming to your page and you wanted a message to appear at the top. We could say, don't forget your permission slips. That's kind of lame, but you get it. And then what will happen is, as that updates, it pops up right here. Don't forget your permission slips. So it's not like a scrolling banner, but it would be a message that would pop up right there. And I know some teachers like to use that almost as, say, a bell ringer. And it would pop up, but they could change it each day just to ensure that students are coming here. So that's kind of a fun thing you can do. When we go to the 3 dots for more, this is where you can make a copy. So if you perhaps wanted to create a template of a site and have your students make a copy of it, this is where they could do it. So that way it's the format's all going to be the same. I like that, but I also like giving students the freedom, because some kids' brains are going to take off with this, like my buddy Kearney. they're going to take off with this, and you're going to see that they have some major skills with design and things like that. Other kids might need some help. And so you can certainly do that. The other thing that's nice is that version history. Like all Google tools, you can go in and see the changes that are made. If you've totally messed something up, you can just go ahead and go back in and revert it to that. Publishing, once you have something published. So if you notice, it says sites.google.com/billingschools.org, and then whatever you name this will be after the slash right there. All right. And obviously that's just your account. Make sure you're in your school account when you're creating this, if it's for school. So let's check out themes right now. Now, here's the best thing about Google Sites. And one of the reasons why we made the switch to Google Sites in our district is because it is ADA compliant. That's a huge thing because we want screen readers to be able to read the website well for people who have visual impairments. And so there are some changes that you can make on here that make it not ADA compliant. But in terms of your students creating a website, it's not that big of a deal. I always let them do their thing to a certain extent. We talk about readability because why would you make this in cursive if you can't read cursive? Which is a huge thing that kids do because they think it looks fancy. Again, those are all things you just talk to them about. So if you didn't want to go too crazy, you can just go over to themes. And these are just some simple themes that they have here. So let's say I wanted this one. And I can customize the colors here, but I like making my own. So let's say that's the theme there. Pages, again, once you choose something, you're not going to have to be in themes much. So you can just kind of ignore that. Pages are going to be all of your pages where your pages show up here. So I have my home page. If I want to add a page, I can hit the plus button. All about me. And now that's going to be the second page that shows up here. I can also add a sub page from there. So we see sub pages sometimes when you click on this and a menu drops down. Those would be sub pages. Again, I play around with it. I go simple at first, and then I can always drag these things around to get in the order that I want them to go in. So let's go. So if you notice, I'm on my home page, and now let's go to insert. And these are all the things I can insert from, just a text box. I can embed something. This is really nice. I'll show you an example of it for Book Creator. If you had students create books in Book Creator, you can go ahead and embed that right in here. Pull anything from your drive. And what's nice is if you're pulling it from your drive and you update it in your drive, it's going to update on your website. And then you kind of have these content blocks that are really easy to use. I'll show you that in a minute. Table of contents, image carousel. If you get some kids that are super into images, which that became the problem when we were all collaborating on one site, is that they were adding so many images and it just almost crashed it. Image carousel is the best way to do that. You can add buttons. You saw my buddy James who put that feedback button that linked up to a form. That's a button. YouTube videos, calendars all link up on there, maps as you saw, and then all of these other Google tools. So let's just say we wanted to add a picture and have some text to go with it. So what's nice about these is you can see where there should be a picture. So I'm going to click on the plus, and now I get all these options. It's going to say, do you want a YouTube video, map, calendar? Do we want to select the image, upload the image? So if we upload, that means it's already sitting on our computer. In this case, I want to select an image. Might take a minute to load. And now it's going to allow me to search several places for this image. Most popular, Google image search. What's nice about this is that, and I always tell kids, you want to use the search tool or the search feature in the Google tool. If we search for images here, we are free to use them on a website. So let's just say I found a picture of dogs. That's adorable. Double click. Let's create my image. Slowly. All right. So there it is. Now we have that image there, and now I can type in what this is and then add some additional text. Also, if you notice, kids can go ahead and choose their font. This is a huge thing to talk about fonts and readability with them, because oftentimes they pick that cursive font and then they can't even tell if it's spelled correctly. Also, we take so many things for granted that kids know, but they don't. If they see something underlined in red, they don't know that that means that it's wrong. So again, teaching them to either right click on it, check their spelling that way. But I always say absolutely no cursive, because most of them can't read it. All right. Let's talk about changing this up here now. If you notice, I changed the name of this to practice and it automatically put it here in my header. You can change that. This is where you can add your logo. And this I'm going to say Mrs. Rainey's. Do Mrs. Rainey. How about that? All right. And say I don't like that picture in the background. I can choose my header type first of all. So let's look. I can make it a cover where it's giant. I can do a large banner, or I can just have the title like that. But in this case, I'm just going to go with a banner, and I'm going to change my image. Again, I'm going to select an image, and it's going to give me the same Google search tool. But this is where I teach kids about searching by color. So if I just wanted blue, I can also search by color here. If you notice, when I typed in that word, you can search by color. But this is how you're going to get some blue backgrounds and things like that. So let's say I wanted that. All right. Now, if you noticed right here, it was saying adjusting for readability, and it gave me these little stars. So when I unclick that, it makes it brighter, which might be the color that I want. Again, this is going to be for a screen reader. So it's always good to talk to kids about accessibility tools and why they're important. The other thing is, if you're going to create a site that you're going to publish out to everybody and you have images on it, you're going to need to do a few things here. We can go to our more options, and this is where you're going to add alternate text. This is where you'd say image of puppy, so that if a screen reader were reading this, it would explain that to the person who is visually impaired. So that's on there as well. What else? Are you guys ready to just dig in and start playing? I hope. Let me show you this real quick though, because I think Sloane's writing was on here with social studies. All right, so this is where I use that embed code right here. So this is her Great Smoky Mountain book that she did in Book Creator. And so when you click on it, it just opens it up here. Maybe. All right. So here's all her writing about the Great Smoky Mountains. About the author. I love it. All right. So again, on a site, you can add so much with all of these features, with all of the embed codes, text boxes, and so on. So what do you think, Nikki? Should we, as it loads slowly? All right. I got to find my practice site. Well, let's just do this. Well, yeah, Nikki, we need to talk about the 5-clue challenge. All right.
Yeah.
So on here, if I didn't want the navigation to be at the top, and because I really liked the way that those teachers had their sites and how it was to the left of it, I'm going to go into my settings, and the navigation is right here, it's at top, and I'm just going to put it to the side. So now, here's another trick, and this always throws kids. So remember, we're in editing mode here. And so like this is taking up space and all that. So you're not going to see everything as well. If you want a nice view of what it will look like, you're going to hit this preview button. And it takes all that away. And so now I can see, okay, here's my side navigation. A lot of kids get really panicked when they insert a Google Doc. So I'm just going to show you how easy that is. So say go to Docs. And it's going to pop up anything that's recently been in Docs. But again, you can search real quick. So I will just take, here's social studies. Let's take James's social studies thing here. And so this kind of throws them. So one, it put it there. All we have to do is just click and drag to where we want it. Okay, so say we want it below the dog. Okay, here we are. And they freak out because it's cutting it off here. And they try and make it bigger, which they can do. Like they can stretch this out, but I always say don't panic, because this is what it will look like when we publish it. So we go to preview, and now when we scroll down, when his paper loads, it's going to have a scroll bar right here. There we go. So it's not taking up space of like an entire Google Doc right there, but it's still like the person can scroll and see it. So that's one thing I always tell kids, just keep checking your preview. Another thing that we talk about is websites being boring. Like, is this pretty boring with just a bunch of white? And then you have this with white. So they can come over here to this color palette and they go to image, select image. Again, I tell them, remember, we got to pick a color that we want that will kind of match this. So some of them like funky patterns and all kinds of stuff. I say pick a color. So again, we'll pick blue. Because some of them would pick like this. And then we talk about how that's distracting from the important things that you wrote about. And so if you wanted a little texture, you could do something a little different. Like this has some texture to it. Let's just see. There. And then I always have them, I always say, now I want you to pass your computer to somebody else and I want you to get their opinion on it. Is it too distracting? Is it not? Because we know if we turn over Google Slides to kids, it is like color and images just vomited on the page.
Yeah.
And when we talk about, especially in a website, like you're publishing this, like this is a big deal. We want it to look nice. We don't want to take away from your hard work of writing and those things. So that's kind of a big thing that we do. Bottom of, let me see what slide it is. Slide 8, I have linked up, I'm going to make it white, a YouTube tutorial of just kind of like the slower process of creating a site. I know this can be a bit of a fire hose. And it's like a 30-minute video where he kind of walks through the steps, and it's pretty easy. And what's nice is you can pause it and then do some of those things. There are so many things that you can do. Like if you saw on my training video how I had like the banner moved and things like that. If those are things you want to learn, just reach out to me, because those are pretty come to my Canva session in July, because that's where I made them.
Yeah, that's right. That's on July 18th, I think. I was just looking at the schedule. Yeah.
You guys totally should come to the Canva one, because it's mind blowing the easy thing you can do with it. So
it is.
And now we can use it with kids. Woohoo!
And it's free.
Mm-hmm. My whole goal with this today is that you weren't overwhelmed. I mean, I know it's overwhelming, but you weren't scared. Like when I first did it, I was like, oh, it has to be perfect, and I don't know what I would put here. Just get your ideas down. That's why I showed you all the different ways to do it. So a classroom page wasn't for me. That wasn't going to be for me. But in terms of like a big class project, it's very fun to see everything come together.
Yeah, I had when I taught 4th and 5th grade, we did makerspace every week, and it was our Friday afternoon activity. And our process was that they could make something and they could work at their own pace. But when they were done with that project, they needed to post about it on their Google site. And they each had their own makerspace Google site. And so they would take pictures and they would caption those pictures. I encouraged them to document the process of whatever it was they were making. So I had the girl who cooked every week, and she brought all the stuff to do her cooking project, and she took pictures of that and then loaded it on her website. So by the end of the school year, some of them had pretty detailed makerspace websites that really gathered all of the details of the things that we had done together.
All right, Kimber has a question. How do you upload pictures from your iPhone without uploading all of them? Okay, so I just choose the picture and then I airdrop it all because I have a Mac. Because you can choose individual pictures that way. My poor computer would be so loaded down if it did all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Airdropping is my favorite way, but that's just because I have a Mac. So
yeah, I upload them into my Drive and pick a folder for the destination, and then once they're in that Drive, you can add them to the site so easily.
Yep.
You need the Drive app on your phone to do that.
Yep. I also like, that's hard for students because, especially if they're doing it about themselves, because, you know, we do have things locked down tightly. So kids aren't sharing photos and things like that. So often we'll just have them take a picture of themselves or use like their Pixton avatar. And then just say, I know you don't have a picture of your dog specifically, but maybe find that breed of dog. Yeah. They kind of get
did you want me to share the 5-clue challenge one?
Yes, please do, because I hadn't completed mine. So
I worked with a teacher. Her name is Andrea Rogers, and she teaches at Amsterdam Elementary in Manhattan, Montana. And we did a project that was sort of ongoing for a few months. And we started by teaching the kids about a 5-clue challenge. And if you've ever seen this activity, it's an activity created by a teacher of the year, Mike Soskill. And he's gone out in his travels and he records videos of himself at an undisclosed location. And he records 5 clues about where he is. And the activity part is you show his video, you listen to his first clue and you hit the pause button, and you have the kids do research about so that they can kind of figure out where they are, where he is. And then hopefully by the 5th clue, they've narrowed down the location and he reveals where he is. They're really fun to do in isolation. I'll see if I can find the website here, just to have it. For me, it was kind of a bell ringer activity, or I'd put on the board, get ready for a 5-clue challenge, and the kids would know that they'd take out their Chromebooks and their whiteboards, and it would take us, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes to do one of these challenges. And so with Andrea's class, we did them a couple of times a week for several weeks. So they really got used to the format of what a 5-clue challenge was. And then we had them make their own 5-clue challenge videos, and we aligned it to their state research projects in 4th grade. And we used the green screen. So they stood in front of the green screen, they gave their clues, and in their final clue, they put their background revealing the state that they were in. Some of them were really creative and switched out their background with each clue so that they could use that to accent what they were doing. And so we took all of those videos and we put them on this website, a Google site, and it was very easy to just load all of the videos here. And then they could take turns watching them as a class and then share them with their family members as well. And so this site, I think we have it published. I think we had it published so that anybody could see it, but when she did it again the next year, she did it in their school domain so that only people within their school could see it as well, which was nice for the privacy part of things as well. So yeah, that was a fun use of the site. All right. Did we have any other things to talk about or sites to share or any questions anybody had about Google Sites? A couple more things to share and then we can move on.
Okay, Shirley wants to know, how do I airdrop to a new computer? My phone said no people found. What I do, Shirley, is I go to the magnifying glass at the top of my MacBook and I click on that and type in airdrop. And then it will pop up your airdrop and it will see if, I think it defaults to share with no one, and you want to share with your contacts or everyone. And then you should be able to see it. Jessica, what's the lowest grade level you've done a Google site with? Third is the lowest I've done it with. I think it's going to depend on the devices that you have, really. But I do think you could do it with probably any grade level. You just as a teacher would have, you know, a little bit more control over what you're adding to it. But I found, especially third and fourth, these kids just took off with it. And it's that whole creating something that the world is going to see, that they're dying to do. They're dying to create and share. And this really, really kind of does that.
Mhm.
They're pretty proud of it.
Yeah, I think the trick with our youngest kiddos is, are they able to log into Google? And if you've got them logging into Google and using the Google Drive to create things, then Google Sites falls under the same tools, like as far as slides and docs and things like that. But if you're not having your little ones, you know, type in their their login and information and everything, it could be a little bit more daunting.
Right, for sure. Definitely easiest with Chromebooks and you know, you have some of those skills underway.
I will say, I think my daughter was a first or second grader when she created one of her first Google Sites. It wasn't awesome, but she was able to do it and she played around with it.
That's what happens. So, you know, I taught kids Canva, then they go home and that's all they do is create with Canva or sites. I know, like Sloan, I showed you her site. Now, granted, her mom does my job too for primary kids. So she just kind of has that knack for it. But she went home and she created all these sites for like a dog walking business. And her mom's like, "Are you going to do this as a job?" And she's like, "No, I just wanted to create a site." So they're going home and creating and doing all kinds of stuff. So
awesome.
Which is really what you want, right?
Well, I'll move on. If Sarah, are you finished or are you ready for me to move on to my part of it?
I'm good. Go right ahead.
All right. Well, if you joined us for our session last spring, we did a lot of things using Finding Your Roots, and we shared teaching resources to go along with Finding Your Roots. And it was a way to using our media, our PBS media, to inspire digital storytelling and publishing. And it was well received. We really liked it. And so what I thought I'd do this summer is to share a different PBS program, either national or local, with you, and talk about how maybe the tool that we went through could be combined with this. And so the one I want to share this week is called The Great American Read. And it was a show that was about 5 years ago. It was on PBS, and it was a challenge put forth through PBS to figure out what is the most popular fiction novel in the United States. And so you can start by clicking the reading checklist here, and it will take you to all of the books that PBS curated and wanted people to vote on. And they had the book out and they circulated these lists and they challenged people to go through and check off how many of these books that you've read, and kind of a fun way to see where people are and be a fun way to collect data with kids. Now, spoiler alert, because this happened in the past, we know what the Great American Read was. Does anyone know? Fun fact, we'll see if anybody was following it. You can put it in the chat if you know what the winner of the Great American Read was. I'm not gonna tell you, I'm gonna let you think about it. Go through the list. Or if you are watching, you can let me know. So yeah, you can go through the list, and You could should print this out and have it in your libraries or in your classrooms and let the kids kind of look at it. Most of these are adult books, so it might be for older kids to do this activity, but there are some classic kids books such as Charlotte's Web and the Harry Potter series are featured on here. They've also got a quiz that they published on the PBS website that you can take this digitally, and you can click through all of the ones. There's Anne of Green Gables. You can click through all of the ones that are there, and it'll tell you how many of the great American novels that you've read. Oh, Kimber, Harry Potter is a good guess, but that wasn't the winner. I'll reveal it in just a little bit. If you would like to watch all of the episodes of The Great American Read, they're on YouTube and they're in this playlist. It was hosted by Meredith Vieira, and she went through each of the titles on the list by genre, and they had them packaged by genre. So you could watch these ones in the heroes or the villains and monsters. And she went through and talked about the author, and it features celebrities who've read the book and why they thought it was such a great book. And a lot of them has authors of other books talking about the books that are there. So all of the episodes can be viewed, or clips of them can be viewed in this collection here. But then just for teachers, there is a collection on PBS Learning Media. So if you've been with me before, you know about our free website for teachers called pbslearningmedia.org. And this has taken some of the books from the list and created some teaching packs to go with them. So we have the elementary titles, the middle school, and the high school titles. So our elementary, Anne of Green Gables, Charlotte's Web, The Giver, Harry Potter, The Little Prince. And so if you were going to do Charlotte's Web with your class, for example, we have the video from The Great American Read. So you can watch this 1 and 44-second video. And then there's an activity, create a character book cover, and then some discussion questions to go along with it. So how would this connect with Google Sites? Put it in the chat box if you have any ideas. If you are going to use The Great American Read with your students and maybe challenge your students to read any of the books from these lists, or to come up with your own school-wide Great American Read initiative, how might Google Sites support that project? And Lisa got it. Google To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee was chosen as the winner of the Great American Read. Yep, book reviews would be great. A great way for kids to keep track of their reading. They could post the books that they read in their blurb on their site. So like I said, not the entire list, but I think it's a nice one if you were going to do one or more of these books in your classroom. Obviously, the older kids, there are a lot more books that go with them. This one with Beloved, in addition to the materials from the Great American Read, they've put in some other things about the book in this collection, including these primary source sets that go along with the themes and the topics covered in the novel. So you can see that when we get into the high school titles, we have a lot of options to support your literature studies. Middle school has a few more at middle school level, and not nearly as many at elementary, but some there. So yep, book reviews, keeping track of our reading, kind of a digital reading log maybe, could be a little bit more of an interactive digital reading log. Lots of cool ways that you can incorporate this initiative with Google Sites. Next week, we'll be back here, same time, same place, but we're going to talk about Google Slides, and Sarah Dahl will be here to go through that. She does a lot of really cool interactive activities, and she'll show you how to build things like that using Google Slides, and hopefully give you some fun tips and tricks for getting more out of slides. look in your email tomorrow for your OPI certificates for being here today. And then also check your mail for coming to Montana PBS Media Lab. I'll send you a little goodie bag with some fun stuff for you to, if we were in person, that would be the stuff sitting on the table when we walked in. But because we're virtual, you get stuff in the mail, which will be fun. So everybody should get something hopefully by the end of the week. So does anybody have any questions for us or anything you want to ask? All right, well, Sarah, thanks so much. It was really great to learn from you. You had some great tips and tricks, and I can't wait to see what everybody does with Google Sites now.
Right. If you have any questions, please just shoot an email to me.